Today, I'm joined by Stewart Bryson for this episode of Howdy Partner. Stewart, thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Before I jump in, a little background. I was, in fact, an intern at Red Pill Analytics, I think the summer of 2017 or 2016. So I was lucky to make that relationship early in my career.
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was going to bring it up if you didn't. So you went ahead and decided to take the punches.
I asked
my Minneapolis team if they had any anecdotes. There were a few that I can mention and some I can't. But here's the one I can. They wanted to know, you still hoard bagels and Cokes?
Ooh, I do. I do indeed. I think that's when I got introduced to everything bagels, and then it was just, wow, this is different. So I wouldn't stop.
Sounds like you took the free bagel maybe too far, but who knows?
I did learn I don't like LaCroix whatsoever, so I don't think I ever touched any of those that summer.
I'll be there.
There we go.
Thank you, LaCroix.
Awesome. But to really jump in, my first question is, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how Red Pill Analytics started?
Sure. So, wow, going back, I think we started in 2014. And, when we started, we were very much an on-prem Oracle Analytics, Oracle database, and really a lot of Oracle data integrator. And that's pretty much the landscape that we started in. I would say a few years into that is when Oracle really started pushing for the cloud. And so we started to take a lot of our on-prem customers to the cloud. And that's still, I would say, a majority of what we do on a day-to-day basis. Look for on-prem workloads that equate to the cloud, and that's most these days. But that being said, we do work with quite a few startups or we'll say at least smaller businesses that are launching net new workloads. Oracle Cloud is great for that, Oracle Analytics specifically. And then it's sort of a blend of the two, which is new initiatives inside of larger companies, right?
Yep.
So these are perhaps departments or we'll say use cases that perhaps haven't necessarily been recognized by, we'll say, IT as, being at least priority, or perhaps, saying not useful is not the right terminology. IT has their constraints, and perhaps these have just been, unfulfilled use cases. And what we found is that when you move to the cloud, every use case is possible.
Absolutely.
Because it's not a technology constraint so much as a budgetary one in most cases. So if customers have money for these use cases, they can make a go of it on their own without IT, or at least perhaps with IT's approval, but perhaps not their involvement. And I think that has been one of the more, beneficial aspects of the move to the cloud, is that every use case can now be considered.
Love that. Where would you say, and even before I joined Red Pill as an intern, I was introduced to your name and Kevin McGinley's as rock stars within Oracle and around data and analytics. So where would you say that your passion for data analytics first started, or how have you seen it grow throughout the years?
Sure. I came very much from the plumbing side of the house, right?
Okay.
So I was a database administrator, Oracle database administrator, and then Oracle data warehouse administrator. And then I moved sort of up the stack into ETL tools, and then finally into analytics tools. And it really wasn't until I got to that final tier that I really started to have, I'll say, passion. And that it's not that those other things aren't important. They absolutely are, especially in the on-prem world. They were the foundation. You couldn't do anything without them.
Yeah.
But it was plumbing. It was installing, configuring, and to some degree I gained that, we'll say, rock star status, because I was one of the few people that could plug all these things together and make them work.
You saw the big picture.
Saw the big picture. But when I got to that final tier, and that final tier is Oracle Analytics or analytics tools and visualizations in general, that's when you start to really talk to the customer in their language, speak their vocabulary.
Yep.
about how much money are we saving? How much risk are we avoiding? How do we measure what we're really doing with data? And I think that perhaps has, I was always passionate about the plumbing because it's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
But when I moved up and started really enabling data-driven decisions, or at least helping my customers make data-driven decisions, is when the passion really flourished. And I'd say I've taken that myself to running a company. Where's the data is something that my employees will hear me say quite often, because we do this for our customers. Why don't we do it for ourselves? And that's, as far as the passion now is more about actually meeting the customer where they are.
Understood. Love that. And of those customers, I'm sure there's countless of varying sizes. What would be something that they've said or you've helped them succeed with that's made you proud to be doing what you're doing with Red Pill?
I think the thing that really gets me going is when a customer says, "You made us faster." And let me qualify that a bit. It is more about, we got this implemented quicker. A lot of times that's because the cloud enables that, but also, you have changed the way our team thinks about data, about how quickly we can roll this out into what size audience, right? So I think that used to be, it would take a while on-prem with any analytics tool, but OBIE specifically.
Yeah.
It took a while to get changes that were desired reverberated through the entire stack. And I think the time to market maybe is the best way to say that today. If we do this correctly, if we implement the tools correctly and walk them through the process, and a lot of cases implement process side inside their organization that matches the scalability and rapidity of the tools today, those are the things that really get me going. We do, our decisions are better.
Mm-hmm.
Our visualizations are better. All that's true. Our data curation's better, but we actually supercharge our process in such a way that we can do more of it quicker, faster. I think that's the thing that really gets me going. And if I were to be honest, it's probably what caused me to found the company to begin with, was to make a paradigm shift and make analytics more consumable. And that means getting it in front of more people and getting changes and new features in front of them quicker as well.
To pivot slightly, with our latest release of Oracle Analytics 5.9, I know you're very involved in our community from that regard and helping shape the direction of Oracle Analytics. Where do you believe with the latest release of 5.9, how it'll impact our customers, or which feature in particular?
Yeah, so I'd say perhaps not absolutely obvious, but immediately. But I think the UI enhancements, which, is that a killer feature? Taken as a whole, it is, but maybe it doesn't really resonate necessarily immediately.
Yeah.
But I think that the strong enhancements we'll even say UX, making it easier to get things done, having the canvas response much better,
Big
the
time.
ability to configure from an overall instance perspective, some of the basic sort of desires around, brushing and these sorts of things. A cleaner look, a cleaner entry point. I think all that has a lot of value.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that in 5.9. It looks, reacts better. I'd say a lot of the machine learning improvements, a lot of those are piggyback on the Oracle database, but the machine learning improvements as far as understanding what your machine learning is doing and not just accepting it wholesale, right? So understanding, well, here are the predictions or the forecasts or whatever, but also help me understand how you came to those conclusions, I think is very, very important. You don't want too much of that, because that we do want the data citizen to be enabled in this tool, and trying to understand explicitly everything that's going on means that you have to move into the data science, data scientist realm. And the tool can enable that, but also let's still make it data citizen capable, but give that citizen some idea of what's going on underneath the covers. And I think that's very, very important. I think one thing is not specific to 5.9,
Yeah.
but specific to OAC in general, or Oracle Analytics in general, I will say is, I think I said this earlier, but meeting the customer where they're at. And I think on-prem, there were both licensing and technology reasons that, you sort of almost had to run this one OBIEE instance. There was so many reasons why you need everybody to sort of pile into this one instance. And with different SLAs and use cases and all those things became very difficult. What I like about OAC, and this is really about the cloud in general, but certainly Oracle Analytics does this in the cloud, is that you don't necessarily have to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, if you've got a big on-prem OBIEE installation or platform, you need to talk about migrating that huge thing to OAC. But there are reasons to consider whether or not it makes sense to run in that mode. You can run with multiple OAC instances. You can run with different SLAs, different use cases. Does that new analytics initiative need to live in that bigger, more consolidated OAC instance? Maybe, but you have the option to say, you know what we're doing is very different than what is being managed by IT. Let's spin up our own service, right?
Yeah.
And let's own it and operate it and maintain it and meet whatever SLAs we want to meet and whatever compute and resource issues we have, and maybe we'll even pay for it. So I think what OAC does now is get us out of that plumbing business that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Top of the session.
And it's that quick start with being able to quickly spin up an instance and get going.
Absolutely. One of the things is when we're talking to customers, they're like, we got to migrate this whole thing. And you're like, yeah, we do need to migrate that whole thing. But what are some of the drivers that are causing you to try to migrate that? And they'll say, well, it's this really super important use case. Perhaps it's C-suite dashboards that aren't performing well or whatever it is. It's like, let's just focus on that.
Yeah, get one win after another.
Absolutely. Whatever we do there can be ported back into a larger OAC instance if that's truly what you want, but maybe you don't need that. So maybe these, very important use cases can live and breathe on their own. And that's been some of the challenge. We do a lot of strategy engagements with customers about how to make this move. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing we highlight over and over again. What are your really important use cases? Maybe we pull those out.
Is it key just to avoid boiling the ocean and really focus around small incremental wins?
Exactly. Small incremental wins. Perhaps we set new best practices and new go-to-market plans for how we should go to the cloud from this one use case. What are the learnings we get as an organization?
Yeah.
Standing up this one very important use case. Maybe those can weigh into our migration strategy.
Nice. Awesome. And then to wrap up with my last question, I know you're a really engaged member of Oracle community and Oracle Analytics community as a whole. Could you share some of your experience being within the analytics community?
Yeah, I think it's, obviously it's very rewarding. I wouldn't do it. Now, in all honesty, there's a marketing side of it that is rewarding, right?
Definitely.
But there's not enough of that to justify it. I really do enjoy it. I think, I remember when I did some interviews for the ACE program some years ago, and they were asking me about why do I do this and what value do I get out of it? And I'm an Oracle ACE director. I'm also an Oracle Groundbreaker ambassador. And I would say the reason I spend so much time on that is you get credibility. Mm-hmm. That's certainly a nice to have, right? But also with that credibility comes I get to sit on conferences, conference committees, and decide on content. And I think that's really, really valuable to try to help forge what the community is going to be seeing and what pieces of technology are important. But also I get a lot of thanks from community members who say, that presentation I saw from you, 2 years ago, we did what you said and it worked. That's incredibly rewarding. So I think, we do it because we're technologists and we want a little laboratory to work in and try things, and conference presentations usually get me to do that.
Yeah.
Try new things and test new things. And I think that's super fun, but really just, helping somebody learn something new.
Totally. It sounds like
Incredibly rewarding.
The active learning and active engaging to learn with others is a huge.
Yeah, it causes me to learn. Helping others learn causes me to learn, and we're all just getting better. So I think that all of that is rewarding, and it's why I continue to do it.
Fantastic. Well, this has been awesome. I'm glad I got to connect with you and learn more about your story, and kind of circle back on how I got introduced to Red Pill as well. But Stewart, thank you so much for taking the time to share more about what you're practicing with your customers, as well as how you're engaged with our community.
It was my pleasure, Brendan. So glad to see you doing so well.
Thank you so much.
Gives my heart joy.